What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and let's do a gaming minute where I discuss industry news for the day. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the PlayStation Classic that was announced. Via their blog, PlayStation announced that a PlayStation Classic console was going to come out December 3rd for $99.99. Now, with that PlayStation Classic, they're going to have 20 games installed on it. They talked about Wild Arms, they talked about Final Fantasy and a couple others, but they said you're going to have to wait to find out the other 20. Of course, pre-orders are on right now, and this does feel a little bit like a desire to out-nostalgia Nintendo. But what I wanted to know from you guys is, what do you think about this, especially when you look at the PlayStation Classic? 45% smaller, that's going to be great. It's got HDMI out, of course, as any new standard should have. But there are a couple issues with it that I think some people really need to know before they jump in. First, it is run via USB power, so you will need to buy a separate adapter if you want to run that. A very small issue, but one that people should probably be aware of. Additionally, because at that time they didn't have analog sticks right at the starting, I think it was a year or two later if I remember right, there's no analog sticks on these controllers at all whatsoever. Now, some people, especially historical gamers, probably won't be bothered by that. But I think a lot of people will look at that, and that interaction with the controller just isn't the same and may end up bothering some people. I get it. I understand that. But I want to know what you guys thought of that omission, because it did seem a little odd to me. Additionally, when I was looking at this, I started to realize that there was a problem with it, or at least something that slightly worries me. It doesn't have a scaler on board the system. Now, what's a scaler? Well, what a scaler does is it takes your lower resolution and it pumps it up to your higher resolution. Most TVs have this. However, as many of us have found, and you can find in any rating company or website that does ratings for HDR or 4K TVs, the scalers in TVs sometimes are magnificently bad. Now, not always. There's a lot that really do an excellent job. But if you look at the output on the PlayStation Classic, it's actually stated as 480 and 720, meaning that they don't pop up to the 1080p on their own within that system. Now, not understanding exactly how much it would cost to add a scaler chip, they're not incredibly expensive, but to keep this under its $100 price tag, I can see them doing that. However, we are stuck then with the TVs themselves doing the scaling. This can actually cause issues, especially if you look at, let's say, Artings, which is a really good website that covers all kinds of TVs and their ratings. Some scalers are not really that good, especially when you start getting down to the 720p, let alone 480p resolution, and piping those out. So it's something to be aware of, especially because when you look at this versus, let's say, the NES Classic or SNES Classic, where those games were, for the most part, you know, your 2D scrollers, the much older style games. The PlayStation 1 didn't necessarily have that. Again, you've got games like Final Fantasy and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see how that looks upscaled, especially like the FMVs and different elements of those games. That's a big deal for a lot of us, and I think it's quite important. Also, I have to say, I don't know about you, but the idea of saying, hey, you can go ahead and get one of these, but we're not going to tell you until later what the 20 games are, seems odd. Not 100% sure why they're holding off on announcing those. To me, I've never been a fan of the classic systems. I'm not, and I mean these ones that are being resold. I've always been a fan of that backwards compatibility being added to newer systems. And this worries me a little bit because it makes me feel like this is even more of a push for Sony to not worry about backwards compatibility on their current hardware, but instead just go ahead and sell you a little box that runs those games on its own, but only runs a certain number of those titles. And when you look at like Xbox and its backwards compatibility and enhanced backwards compatibility, there's a great deal of games out there from PlayStation in particular where I think we really would like to see them on these new systems with maybe some new HD elements that could be added into those games. What I would like to know is what you guys think. Do you like the idea of these classic systems? And I get that some of you really do. I don't know exactly the cord length. I'm sure that it's there, but when you look at the cord lengths for like the NES Classic, that wasn't the best cord length as well. So I'd be really interested to know what you guys think. Hopefully these systems come out and they really do end up impressing us, and they really do have a good list of 20 games. Of course, somebody's going to figure out a way to crack them if it's an emulator and throw whatever games they want on there. But I'd like to know what you think. Do you like the idea of having this extra system, or would you rather see the backwards compatibility be built out on your current one? What do you think of the price? What do you think of the specs? Does it having no scaler bother you? Does it having no analog sticks bother you? These are all things that this discussion, especially as we get towards its December 3rd release date, is going to be vital for the industry, because I don't think they're going to be the only ones doing this. We already know that Sega's got their own in plans, and it's just a matter of time before all these companies start releasing their classic versions of things. But you think that's it? That's not all. There's actually more news today, being the fact that Red Dead 2's online multiplayer beta was announced this morning. They're going to be doing that in November. Now, this alleviates some of the concerns that I had originally with this title, because I thought, you know what, they haven't talked about online at all. There's a good chance they're going to delay that for a while, what have you. But if you have a console, you own it, you pre-ordered it, you're going to be able to jump into this online beta. Now, they haven't said exactly what it's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be 99 cents for every bit of picket fence that you want around your fort, but what have you. At least they're doing it, so we'll be able to jump into there, and we'll be able to sort of understand exactly how they're going to treat the multiplayer. They say it's an expansion of and building upon and an evolution of that original multiplayer for Red Dead Redemption. I don't know if you liked that or not. I did. I thought it was quite enjoyable, but there were certainly some rough spots to it. I would love to see some of the improvements that they've got in GTA Online, and I certainly don't mean the microtransactions, getting into Red Dead 2. That would be fantastic. I'm incredibly excited for that. I want to know what you think. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down. You can always subscribe. It helps the channel. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.